The badge arrives on a Tuesday. Not in a ceremony, not with handshakes and cameras in a room full of people watching. It arrives in a plain manila envelope slipped under your apartment door sometime between midnight and 6 in the morning. You find it when you're half awake, still holding your coffee, still wearing the same expression you wear every morning, the one that doesn't commit to anything yet. Inside the envelope, a laminated card with your photograph, a number, no name, and 3 letters you've spent 4 years working toward. You stand there in your doorway for a long time. The coffee goes cold, you don't notice. This is how it begins at the bottom. Level 1 is a basement, not metaphorically, literally. Your first posting is a subterranean signals monitoring room in a building whose address doesn't appear on any public record, in a city you were told not to name in personal correspondence. There are 11 other analysts in the room. Nobody uses last names. Nobody asks where you went to school or what your family does or whether you have someone waiting at home. The work is the conversation. The work is everything. You sit in front of 3 screens for 9 hours a day, and you read intercepts, communications flagged by an algorithm that you are not cleared to know the details of. Your job is to decide, within a 30-second window, whether a flagged message is noise or signal. Noise gets filed, signal gets escalated. You never find out what happens after escalation. That is intentional. By the end of the first month, you have escalated 41 intercepts. You are told, through a supervisor whose face you have never seen outside of a screen, that your accuracy rate is among the highest in your intake cohort. You file this information away. You do not celebrate. You already understand instinctively that this place doesn't reward celebration. It rewards stillness. The hidden rule at level 1 is patience. The people who wash out in the first year are the ones who came in expecting momentum. They expected fieldwork, decisions, the feeling of mattering. What they got was a basement and a 30-second window, and they couldn't reconcile the two. You could. You don't know yet whether that says something good about you or something else entirely. Level 2 takes 18 months to arrive. Your transfer comes through the same way the badge did. No ceremony, no explanation. One morning, your access card opens a different door. The room on the other side is larger. The screens are different. The people in it are quieter in a way that feels earned rather than imposed. Your supervisor here has a face and a first name, and the particular quality of attention that belongs to someone who has been watching you for longer than you've been watching anything. Her name is Reyes. She is the first person in this building who looks at you like you're a variable she hasn't fully solved yet. That look, you will come to understand, is the highest compliment available at this level. Level 2 is source development. You are no longer reading intercepts, you are reading people. Specifically, you are reading the files of individuals who have been identified as potential assets. Civilians, mid-level government employees, business figures, academics. People with access to information the agency needs and reasons, personal or financial or ideological, that might make them willing to share it. Your job is to build psychological profiles, to identify the exact combination of pressure and incentive that would make a given person cooperative, to find the door inside someone before anyone has knocked on it. You are good at this in a way that surprises even you. There is a man in the files, mid-40s, deputy minister of trade in a country you're not permitted to name in written reports. His file shows a stable marriage, 3 children, a mortgage he refinanced twice in 4 years, a political career built on a coalition that is quietly fracturing. Most analysts flag the financial pressure as the primary lever. You flag something else. In 3 years of travel records buried in the appendix, you find a pattern. The same city, the same 2-week window every spring. No official function attached to the visits. You write 4 paragraphs about what the pattern implies. Reyes reads them. She doesn't say anything for a long time. Then she forwards your analysis upward without telling you where it goes. 6 months later, the deputy minister appears in a different kind of file, an active asset file. Your name is nowhere in it. That, Reyes explains, is exactly how it's supposed to work. The hidden rule at level 2 is invisibility. The best work this agency produces leaves no fingerprints, not on the target, not on the operation, and especially not on the analyst who made it possible. You start to understand that your name being absent from outcomes isn't an erasure, it's a promotion. Level 3 is where the work becomes weight. You are cleared for operational involvement at the 31-month mark, faster than the standard timeline, a fact that is mentioned once and never again. Operational involvement means you are no longer building profiles for other people to act on. You are in the room when decisions are made. You sit at tables where the people across from you have the kind of authority that doesn't appear on organizational charts. You learn to read those rooms the way you learned to read intercepts, quickly, accurately, with the understanding that a wrong read has consequences that don't stop at your career. The first operation you're directly involved in concerns a journalist, not a hostile actor, not a foreign agent, a journalist, domestic, with a story that hasn't been published yet and sources inside this building that shouldn't exist. The operation is not violent. It is something quieter and in certain ways worse. It involves the journalist's editor, a financial irregularity in the publication's parent company that is technically accurate and strategically timed, and a source who is identified and quietly transferred to a posting so remote it functions as a disappearance. The story never runs. The journalist wins a different award the following year for a different story, and seems, by all external measures, fine. You wrote the timeline on the financial irregularity. You identified the source. You did not make the calls or sign anything. Your contribution exists in a document that lives behind a classification level you weren't cleared for at the time you wrote it. You lie awake for 3 nights after it concludes. Then you don't. That transition from 3 nights to 0 is the moment you later identify as the real beginning of level 3. Not the clearance, not the table, the 3 nights becoming 0. The hidden rule at level 3 is compartmentalization. Not of information, you understood that from the basement. Compartmentalization of self. The person who sits at the operational table cannot be the same person who lies awake questioning the operational table, because that person will eventually break, and broken people at this level become liabilities. You learn to keep the 2 versions of yourself in separate rooms. You become very good at closing doors. Level 4 arrives not as a transfer, but as a question. Reyes, still your supervisor in the bureaucratic sense, though the gap between your respective clearances has been narrowing for a year, sits across from you in a room you've never been in before. The room has no screens, no recording equipment that you can identify. 2 chairs and a table and a window that looks out at nothing useful. She asks you a single question. She asks whether you understand that the work changes at the next level in a way that cannot be undone and whether you are prepared for that change. You ask what changes. She says the distance. You think about that for a moment, then you say yes. The distance she means is geographical, operational, and psychological. At level 4, you are no longer working from a room. You are in the field, not as a field officer in the traditional sense, not running assets on the ground, but as a senior operational architect. You design frameworks. You map influence networks across multiple countries simultaneously. You identify which relationships between which people in which governments are load-bearing, which ones, if severed or redirected, would cause structural shifts in ways that serve the agency's objectives. You are in the language of the level below, the person who finds the doors. At this level, you are the person who decides which doors matter. The money is different at level 4. You've never cared much about money, but you notice it because it is one of the visible markers of progress in a system designed to make progress invisible. The apartment changes, the travel changes. The quality of the silence around you changes. It becomes chosen rather than imposed. What also changes is the weight of being right. At level 1, a wrong call meant a misfiled intercept. At level 4, a wrong call means something you will read about in a newspaper 3 months later and understand completely and be unable to discuss with a single person on Earth. You make 2 wrong calls in your first year at level 4. You read about both of them. You do not make those calls again. Hidden rule at level 4 is one you were never told and had to find yourself buried in the negative space of everything the agency does and doesn't document. The rule is this: the agency does not need loyalty. Loyalty is an emotion, and emotions are leverage, and leverage is a vulnerability. What the agency needs is alignment. It needs people whose understanding of the world has become close enough to the agency's own understanding that their decisions, made independently, in the field, under pressure, without communication, will consistently produce outcomes the agency would have chosen. The day you understand this rule is the day you understand that you passed some final threshold without being told there was a threshold to pass.
You are sitting in a hotel room in a city you'll never put in writing when your phone shows a message from a number you recognize as a one-time channel. The message contains 3 words and a set of coordinates, no instruction, no authorization chain, no named superior signing off, just the 3 words and the coordinates and the implicit understanding that you already know what to do. You sit with the phone for a while. Outside the window, the city moves through its evening in complete ignorance of the room you're sitting in, the phone in your hand, the coordinates on the screen, the years of basement intercepts and psychological profiles and operational timelines and closed internal doors that brought you to exactly this chair, exactly this moment, exactly this choice. You already know what you're going to do. That's the point. That's been the point for a long time. You put the phone in your pocket, stand up, and go to the window for a moment. The city below looks the same as it did before the message arrived. It always does. That's one of the things you've learned at this level.
The world doesn't look different when the decisions being made inside it are different. The streets are the same streets. The lights are the same lights. The people are the same people going the same places for the same reasons, completely unaware that someone in a room above them just made a choice that will change something they care about without them ever knowing a choice was made. You let the curtain fall. You pick up your jacket. There is no level 5 on any document you have ever been cleared to read. You have begun to suspect that isn't because level 5 doesn't exist.